Hello. Happy Easter, everybody. Easter Sunday. I'm gonna just give you a little spoiler alert. Jesus comes back from the dead. I know. So that's where we're going to finish. Just so you know, that's where all this is heading. Lots of us will know the Easter story, right? So you don't need me to tell you the whole Easter story again. Jesus died, and then he came back from the dead, and most people couldn't believe it. In fact, you know what? A lot of people still don't believe it. And that's what we're going to think about this morning. We're going to be thinking about why I would stand here 2,000 years after something happened in the Middle East talking about it. Because lots of us know the Easter story, but maybe we've sort of sometimes we come to this point in the year and we think, yeah, I know that one. That's good. I know this story. But we sometimes forget why we would do this. So I'm sorry if that's ruined your suspense of Easter Sunday and it's, spoiled the ending for you. But it's a bit like going to watch the film Titanic, isn't it? Can you imagine going in, I wonder what's going to happen? But we actually quite like stuff like this. And so I've got good news and bad news. The bad news is I don't have any new material for you. But the good news is that Jesus died and rose again. And that is genuinely the best news you could ever hope to hear. This idea has been scientifically proven that we like to know the ending of stuff. Okay, it's called perceptual fluency or processing fluency. It's why, who likes watching the same films over and over again? Who's read the same book again because you just like it, right? Who listens to the same kind of music? Again, and you come back to the same series, the same films, the same books. Your dad sells the same jokes because we like to know the ending. And in fact, if we know the ending, it makes us feel comfortable. It's why comedians are really good at setting up a joke and you think you know where it's going, and then at the end they just give you a little twist and you're like, very good. There is no twist in this story. I'm sorry to say, but it is one that we're comfortable with. It's one that we know. And so that is good for us because this is where it gets interesting, because Jesus talked about what was going to happen. He told all of his friends, all the people who were listening to him and coming to listen to the things he was telling them about the world, the universe, and everything. And he said stuff to them that told them that this was going to happen, and they still didn't get it. And even after the event, loads of people will have told you Jesus died and rose from the dead. He came back, and it changed everything. And yet for lots of us, it still doesn't change anything. And so today, I'm hoping that the words of Jesus might just help us to think about why this happened. You see, Jesus, when he was talking to his friends, in fact, he was talking to some people who weren't big fans of what he was up to. They were called the Pharisees, and they didn't really like what Jesus was up to in the world. And he said to them, I have come that you might have life, and life in all its fullness. What he never said was, I have come that they might be comfortable and that Easter Sunday will be about a really cracking lunch and we'll sing a few great songs and feel happy. He didn't say that. That might be part of the fullness of life, but he came that we might have life and life to the full. So like I say, we're not going to spend ages on the Easter story because you already know it, but we are going to think about why Jesus came and died and then was resurrected, and why his words that we've just heard tell us the answer before we've even started. It is about fullness of life. And I don't know about you, but I want fullness of life. I want a life that is full of the goodness that I believe God has put in this world. And so if we want to discover the fullness of life, then I think we have to ask the question, what is the meaning of life? Just a nice, easy one for 20 minutes on a Sunday morning. Okay, that's all we're going to tackle this morning. It's nothing major, just the meaning of life. And so once we've discovered then the meaning of life, which I am convinced I'm going to be able to share with you, I think we want to then know how are we going to squeeze the fullness out of that life. And you might be thinking, the meaning of life, are you kidding? I only came to church because it's Easter Sunday, and now you're telling me we're going to discover the meaning of life. I thought there might be Easter eggs or something, but I promise you this will be really, really good news. And then we can all go home, we can have some hot cross buns and eat more chocolate than is socially acceptable. So the issue is with the stuff that Jesus says, lots of us will have heard bits of it, but it's much easier when we hear the stuff Jesus says to kind of put it in like a box and go, Jesus, stop saying difficult things. I'm just going to put that on the shelf and I'll bring it out at Easter when you're a baby. That's a nice one. I like that one. And then maybe at Easter we'll do a little bit of the woohoo, he's alive kind of bit. But all the other stuff Jesus says about life and like everyday life, we find it a bit trickier sometimes. And so we kind of just compartmentalize it and we keep it safe and hidden. But I don't think that's what Jesus is talking about. And I don't think that's what he means when he says the fullness of life can be ours in him. You see, do you ever ask that question? What is the meaning of life? What is all this about? I mean, probably not out loud, especially if you're British. You do it like in the quiet of your own bedroom when you're just trying to close your eyes and go to sleep and your brain goes, now's a great time to think about this. Happens to us all, happens all the time, doesn't it? Your brain just decides to have a chat amongst itself and you think about everything. And I think this is a question that everybody asks in some degree or another. And the answer that we get determines how we live our life. The answer that you have decided for what is the point of all of it determines what you do on a day-to-day basis. Possibly circumstances dictate some of it, but you have all given a meaning to this answer about what is life about. We all do it, and it dictates then how we live. So let's explore the question for a moment, because I think there are some kind of basic assumptions that are underlying this question. What is the meaning of life? First thing is, there is an assumption that there is actually a meaning. I think there is a meaning. This isn't a depressing talk this morning. I think there is a meaning to life, and I think it's worth asking this question. If you didn't think there was, there wouldn't be much point in asking the question. But then if you didn't think there was, you've already answered the question already. Tricky place to be. So there's an assumption that there is an actual meaning, that actually who we are, that what we do, that how we do that actually has a meaning, that there is, in fact, a point to all of this. Secondly, in asking the question, we assume that that meaning can be discovered. Because otherwise, what's the point in asking the question? We're assuming that it can be answered. And then thirdly, we're assuming that actually this life itself matters. And it's worth us figuring out what the meaning of life is now, because otherwise, we'd just have another shot at it another time. But actually, there's something in us that knows that this life matters, and so we want to figure it out. And in the spirit of making things very plain and obvious and telling you the answer before we get there, the answer to the question, what is the meaning of life, is without any doubt in my mind, Jesus. But then you were expecting me to say that, weren't you? I mean, it's Easter Sunday at church. Of course you're going to say Jesus. And so I want us to have a little look at this, because the question in a sense is, well, how is Jesus the meaning of life? Yeah, you can legitimately ask that question. Go on then, prove it, that Jesus is in fact the meaning of life. And the simple answer to why Jesus is the meaning of life is because he said so. He said he is the meaning of life. In fact, he said it in all sorts of different ways so that we could get it. And at some point, we have to take those words out of the box that we've put them in somewhere in our minds and say, okay, Jesus, what are you actually saying here? Because what we decide about what Jesus says about himself, there is no more important decision you will make in your entire life. And so we're going to look at it this morning. He's talking to a friend, and this is just before he raises somebody else from the dead, this guy called Lazarus, who's been dead for a little while, and Jesus is going to walk over and he's going to say, Lazarus, come out. And this dead body gets up and walks out. Jesus has got previous in the Easter story. And so he says to his friend, he says to her, I am the resurrection and the life. I am the life. The one who believes in me will live even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. And then he asks her a question. Do you believe this? And those questions just float in the air for us even today. Do you believe this? And then he's chatting to his friend Thomas, who you might know. So he's often called Doubting Thomas, which is a bit unfair on him. He did all sorts of other great stuff as well. But Thomas is exploring all of the feelings about kind of the questions we're thinking about today. And in John 14, Jesus says to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. You see, here's why Easter matters. Because for someone who talked so much about being life itself, to then die would be somewhat of an anticlimax, wouldn't it? This guy who says, I am the resurrection and the life, dead. Like, that's a big deal. Right? He's gathered all these people who are following him, and he said stuff like this, and then he dies in front of everybody. You'd surely be looking at it and thinking, well, clearly it wasn't. Clearly he wasn't the resurrection or the life. But we know the end of the story, don't we? And I think that means that the rest of this is well worth exploring, because as we've sung about, Jesus defeats death. He beats it. He's like, you've not got enough of a hold on me, and he comes back to life. Now, that's not happening every day, is it? So it's worth us thinking about what is going on here. Because if what Jesus says about himself, if the witness of billions of Christians throughout history and in the world today is to be believed, if the words I'm sharing with you this morning are true, if what Reuben is declaring to the world this morning is true, then it might be worth just getting a hold of that for yourself and actually thinking about what this might mean for you, even if you've heard this a million times. You see, it won't surprise you to hear that actually Jesus makes it really clear what we should do with this. It's almost like he actually wants us to be able to have this fullness of life that he said he was going to come and give us. Which would make sense, wouldn't it? If he said, I've come to give you this, and then made it really mysterious, that wouldn't be very helpful, would it? But the beauty is Jesus has made it so plain and so clear that we can really get to grips with it this morning. So in a moment, we're going to come to the most famous verse in the Bible that you definitely know. And it's when Jesus is talking with a guy who is trying to understand who Jesus is. And he's asking the question, basically, if you are who you say you are, then what does that mean for me and my life? Because you keep talking about eternity and this idea of eternal life. And we're going to explore that in just a moment. You see, the word that Jesus uses and the word that this other guy called Nicodemus uses for life is, in fact, so it's a Greek word, so it's a zoe, okay? And this word encompasses the whole of life. Not just our physical life, which is bios. It's more than just a physical sense. It's more than just our bodies. It's our whole beings. The Bible does use other words like bios when it's talking about our physical beings. And it also talks about this idea of suke, which is our soul life, like our mind and our emotions and our will. It's where we get our word psychology from. So we get our mind and our emotions. But Zoe expresses something deeper. It's kind of the very essence of who we are. And there seems to be something eternal about it. And so Jesus, in trying to help someone who is desperately seeking for Zoe, this life that goes beyond just the physical, beyond just what I experience in my head, he says this to him. He says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son," that's Jesus, "that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but shall have eternal life," shall have Zoe. You see, the whole world offers you fullness of life on its terms. So you can sort out your bios. You can sort out your physical body by going to the gym, by eating right or eating wrong, and just enjoying it. You can sort out your bios by getting your teeth done. You can get your hair done. You can get your face done. You can make your skin darker. You can make your skin lighter. And it all promises that once you've done those things, you're gonna feel fulfilled. You will have fullness of life once you look like this. It tells us that you can get your suke sorted, your psychological life. If you just get your soul and your emotions, in equilibrium, if you get yourself sorted, if you can just feel right, if you just go on the right holiday that actually gives you enough rest, then you'll be alive and kicking. You can reach the top in your job. You can find the right person who completes you. You can practice mindfulness. You can ignore all the things that make you feel rubbish and just squash them in a little box and put them away and hope that they never come back. If you can just get those things right, then you'll be right. You can read a book, you can listen to a podcast, and they'll tell you all the things that you're doing wrong and just like some little 5-minute tips that will get it all right. And you'll know that if you've done any of those things, even if you are looking brilliant and you've done all the right stuff in terms of mental health, which are both wonderful and God-given gifts to us, you can still feel that sense of, I'm not sure. I think there's something more to this. which is what these people who come to Jesus come and they ask him. It's these things that offer us the fullness of life, and yet there are countless examples of the people in life who have reached the pinnacle in whatever area of life they might have chosen to put their hope in, that haven't felt that fulfillment, that fullness of life. There's a guy called Jim Carrey, a brilliant actor. He said it like this: I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see it's not the answer. This is a guy who's had that. He's done that. And he's gone, that's not it. It cannot be it. You see, the meaning of life is Jesus, because he is the source, the sustainer, and the supplier of this Zoe life, this fullness of life that can satisfy us body, mind, soul, and spirit, every part of us. You see, since the beginning of everything, God has had in himself this life, and he has put it in us. He made us in his image. He made us like him. And so there's that yearning in us to be like that, because we know it's there somewhere, and yet we just can't seem to grasp hold of it anywhere that we can grab, because it just slips through your fingers and leaves you wanting for more. But that life is in and of himself, and so when Jesus came, he brought that life to us. That's why he could say stuff like, I have come that you might have life, because he had it to give, because he is that life. And yet out of our desire to create our own meaning of life, we rebel against God and we say, no, I'm going to do it this way, or no, I'm going to do it that way, I'm going to do it her way, I'm going to do it his way, I'm going to do it this way. And Jesus all the while just stands there and holds it out to us. Say, come to me, and I will give you life. And so that's why Easter matters. Because our way of doing it separates us from God, because whilst we're over here, he stands offering it to us day after day after day, and we're over here and it separates us. The Bible calls it sin. It's our way of doing things. It's the falling short of the way that God would say, just come to me. Not follow the rules, not do everything right, but come to me. And so Easter matters because it's the moment when life itself, Jesus, became subject to death. The one who is life, who declared himself to be life and proved it time and time again, said, I am going to subject myself to death, because that's what was ours. Our separation means that we should die, and yet he chose that instead of us. And so he takes all of your mess, all of your rubbish, all the stuff you feel guilty about, all the stuff that you just wish you could change, but you can't because either it's been or it's coming and you just don't feel like you can do anything about it. He takes all of that with him into death. And he dies with it. All of it. All those things that you have said, all those things that you've thought, all those things that you know about, and all those things that you don't even know about that have hurt you, hurt others, and have separated you from a holy God. He has taken all of those things and he has buried them in the grave. But of course, you know the end of the story. He rises again. All that stuff that is left in the tomb is fully dead, fully gone, just like Jesus was. And yet, Jesus comes back from the dead with life in his hands, with this Zoe life. And he stands and offers it again to us today, to anyone who will take it. You see, it's the same old story. It's the one you know. It's the Easter story, but maybe just today, it's the thing that you notice. You know when you watch a film again, and then further back in the story, you go, they told us that was going to happen. And the first time round, I didn't even see it. How many times have you heard the Easter story? And maybe today is the first time you go, I see why. I can see that that's what this was for. Maybe it's for me. Maybe it's not just for them. Maybe it's not just for that person in my family. Maybe it's not just for Reuben. Maybe actually Jesus died for me. You see, if you thought that all that was on offer from Christianity was this ticket to heaven when you die, then maybe you've just figured that I'll just live my life and then at some point I'll deal with all of that. Because it's about when you die rather than about life. Christianity talks a lot about death. And we talk a lot about it, and we sing about it, and we celebrate it. It seems kind of weird. But if you think that's all that's on offer, then maybe you have rejected it. But since, who knows what can happen when you die? But what if when Jesus offers us the fullness of life, it's not just a then thing, it's also a now thing? What if eternal life, like eternity, which feels like a then thing, is actually a now thing? What if you could have that now? This idea of being with God in perfect heaven could actually exist in this moment, in you, that you could be with him forever. That it doesn't actually just start when you die a physical death, but he offers you a present reality where day by day, in the here and now, you can know the thing that all these people were searching for when Jesus said stuff like, I am the resurrection and life. I am the way, the truth, and the life. I have come that you might have life, and life in all of its fullness. So how do you get that? If the meaning of life is Jesus and the thing he offers us is fullness of life, then how do we get that kind of life? Again, he makes it really clear. You just do what Jesus said and you believe him, and then you let him help you to live that out. There is nothing more complicated to it than that. Now, Christians around you and people who you have seen trying to follow Jesus might have made it seem more complicated than that. We're really good at that. People love a rule. People love to make it seem as well, so now you're saved, that's great, now you do this, and now you do that, and then you must join this. Jesus never said any of those things. Some of those things are helpful for us, some of them are unhelpful for us. But Jesus said, follow me. Believe in me. You see, that seems like it's just too simple and too good to be true, doesn't it? That you just, in this moment, even now, you just go, Jesus, I think what he's saying is true, and I think you did die, and I think that did mean that all my rubbish was gone, and I think that does mean that you want me to live a life that's full with you. Simple as saying, I want that. And I'm sorry that I've done those things that meant you had to do that, but I want in. And you can have that. It is as simple as that. We don't have to have a band playing, we don't have to have lights and smoke machines, and you come down the front, you don't have to do any of that. You could have done it right now, and I won't know. I'd love you to tell me afterwards. But it'd be great news. You see, fullness of life or eternal life is found in Jesus alone. And we are so tempted by all sorts of other things that promise us what Jesus alone can fulfill. So you can come to him today. See, on Easter Sunday, we as Christians remind ourselves that on the cross, Jesus offers himself as this living sacrifice on our behalf, that we might have him. It's not anything other than him, you know that. The Christian life is about Jesus. It's not about the Christian life. It is about a person. And it's through him that everything else starts to make sense. There's a guy called C.S. Lewis who put it like this, and I love this quote. He says, I believe in Christianity. He's saying, I believe in the message of Jesus, as I believe that the sun has risen. Not only because I see it, but because by it, I see everything else. You see, today we can see Jesus, but actually when you see Jesus, you see everything else differently. It does change you. It does make you want to do the things that Christians do. It makes you want to come here like every week. Because it's really good to be around other Christians who, when we forget it, point us towards Jesus and go, oh yeah, he did die and he did rise again and he did it for me. And you can be part of that. See, putting your faith, your trust, your believing in Jesus not only changes your life in eternity future, but in the here and now. And it is a fullness of life that changes how you see everything. It even changes how you see those same old stories in life. You know those stories that you've told yourself that you know the ending to? Like maybe you've been to church and you know the ending of how it comes when you go to church. You just feel a bit guilty for a bit and you feel like maybe your mum or your dad should like make you want to feel a bit bad about that. And then you just put it back in that box. And you carry on until the next time they force you to come to church. Maybe Jesus can change how you see that. You see, maybe we don't know the end of every story, but maybe Jesus does. Maybe Jesus wants to change some storylines for you today. So you could put it all back in that box and decide I'll do something with it one day. Or you could start living. You could start living a life that's full. And so in a little while when we baptize Reuben, which is going to be about 12:15, by the way, we're symbolizing that, this life in that moment. We are fully aware in the church of just how weird baptism is, by the way. It's bonkers. Why would we invite a load of people to come and stand outside to watch someone get dunked in a pool of water? It makes little to no sense unless we really believe what Jesus said is true. And we really believe that what Jesus said is true. And so in that moment, it's what Jesus did, and he gave it to us as a special way of remembering that and representing this truth to us in a way that we can kind of picture it and get a hold of it. And so Reuben will declare to us and all the world watching, and the principalities and powers and the spiritual realms, that I am Jesus's. And we'll all go wild and celebrate it, because one life saved is a massive, massive deal. And then Joe and Pete are going to dunk him under the water as though he's gone into the tomb, as though he's died. And then they will raise him straight back out again, because Jesus came back to life. And it's a good job Jesus came back to life, because otherwise Christianity would be known for drowning people throughout the ages. But it's a moment where we celebrate, because that is what Jesus has done for us. It's a physical representation for us of what has happened and the new life that we have been risen to. And so it's a glorious thing. And so if you want to find out the meaning of life and what that actually looks like, what it feels like, you can start today, or you can stick around. We do this every week. We would love you to be part of this. You might have loads of questions, and that is absolutely fine. You might not feel ready to take that step and go, yeah, I'm in. But we'd love to help you figure it out. Obviously, we're going to tell you that we think it's Jesus. But you can walk your own path, and you can work it out for yourself. And so we're going to take a moment now. We're going to sing one last song. Then we're going to go and have coffee. And then parents, you might even have like 8 minutes to yourself before the kids finish at 12 o'clock. Then we're all going to pile back outside onto the field. It's on the far side of the field, because that's where the tap is, and we're going to baptize Reuben. There are loads of opportunities there for you to start living. You can do it in the middle of this song, because I guarantee the song that we'll be singing will have words about Jesus. You can do it while you talk to a friend or someone that you've come with this morning whilst you have a coffee, and it can be as simple as that. You can come and find me while I'm out there. You can do it while we watch Reuben. But what I would urge you is don't not live. Don't live a life that's less than full, because in Jesus, it is fullness of life. Can I ask us to stand for a moment, just as the band come up? I would love to pray for you. I would love to pray for you that God does something in your heart, because I believe he can do it. If he can raise a man from the dead, he could even change you. So why don't you join with me as I pray? Heavenly Father, I thank you that you loved us so much that you sent your one and only Son. That whoever hears what we've talked about this morning and goes, I think that might be true, you know. I think that's worth exploring, and I think that's worth putting my trust in. I think that's worth giving my life to. That you would give them eternal life. Jesus, I thank you that this morning we have the best news to celebrate. That we have life itself in you. And I pray right now, Holy Spirit, presence of God, would you come and help those who are just wrestling with that? Jesus, would you particularly help those who have known the end of the story for a long time and haven't lived in the light of it? Jesus, I pray that people who have looked to other things, to rules and regulations, to fulfilling things in their body, to trying to get their mind in such a way that actually everything's fine, Lord Jesus, that we will look to you alone and know that it's only you that holds the fullness of life. And I pray that you'll do what only you can do in these next few minutes as we sing, as we grab coffee together, as we celebrate with Reuben. Would you be speaking to our hearts, Lord Jesus? We invite you to come and do what only you can do. Amen.